What's up, guys? This is Codes.
Matthew Anthony here.
Hey guys, Anammer here.
Hi, my name's Golf.
Mac Vaughn here.
My name's Winter.
Dom Kane. Bjorn Ackerson.
Julian Gray.
Christian Benz.
The Secrets.
DAWs.
Protoculture.
Austin Hot.
Hi folks and welcome along to another Sonic Academy live show with me, Phil, and I'm joined with Chris, and not BT just yet.
Not just yet.
He is on his way, so we didn't get a rehearsal, so we'll have to do a bit of jiggery pokery live on the show, but we'll get it all sorted. What's happening, Chris? Is he?
He's logging on. Hopefully, logging on to Skype. He should be on very soon, and we'll get him. We'll bring him to you as soon as we can. Everyone, welcome along to the show. Lots of people really excited to get a chat with BT and about his new plugin. We have got loads of people in the chat. We've got DJ Cool, Techolite, Osram VR, Rod, Marconi, System Glitch. Can you all please excuse my barky pup in the background? I'm sure you can hear it. The dog. Somebody's just called at the house, and the dog is going nuts. And it's a 10-month-old puppy, and it's just really barking. So it's really annoying. So I apologise if the dog is just going to bark the whole way through when we have BT on.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't get that in Sonic State, do you, Phil?
Dogs in the background.
Exactly. Yeah. It's amateur hour here. So System Glitch, welcome along. DRL, Music Man 2047. Guys, welcome along to Sonic Show.
Yeah, how did you get your haircut, Chris? That's what everyone's asking.
How did I get my... everyone check it out. I've got a cool haircut. Everyone jealous. My missus did it for me, and she did a fine job too.
She did indeed.
So,
I know I'm trying to find some sort of black market hairdressing scenario. A couple of friends.
I'm sure there definitely is some black markets marketing.
I'm starting to get its own wee vibe, you know. I don't know.
How's everyone doing out there? Is everyone self-cutting hairs? I've seen lots of photographs of people shaving heads. What are you doing? How about haircuts? Are you all out and about now that the lockdown is kind of easing?
Yeah, well, over in the UK, I think England's a bit a bit ahead of us randomly, although we're probably over here got lower numbers than anywhere really. I think we've had a few days of no new cases and no deaths, so all good.
So we'll royally screw that up probably in the next while.
No,
so,
I can't wait. I think we're allowed to go to the pub next week. There's a pub just down the road from me, and it's got like a nice outdoor place, and I'm really looking forward to sitting in it and having a beer. It's going to be amazing.
Sure. It's going to be the nicest beer known to man. So guys, here we have Mr. BT is on the line. I'm going to answer him.
Okay.
It might switch me off. Just
okay. Oh, there's Chris is away. Okay, we'll see if we can get this back. We'll have to invite... I'm going to invite them both back in. Let me see if I can do this. Oh, Chris is on hold. He might come back. We're going to have to invite BT in the other way. So, yeah. These things always go well, don't they? Well, we got Chris back. We got Chris back.
What happens there? What happens when
you were on hold?
Are you right? I tell you what, I'll go and bring him into this call.
Bring him into this one, yeah.
Add. Who is it? Let me just.
This is smooth. This is some smooth TV.
TV jobs, I'm telling you. He looked like he had chargers in his hand and everything. So, Phil, you talk about.
Yeah. I'll talk about all the exciting things. What have we got coming up this week?
Oh no, you could talk about Stutter Edit.
Yes, I have actually been playing with Stutter Edit, and I used to use Stutter Edit 1, obviously, and I used it quite a lot. And Stutter Edit 2, I genuinely is a much smoother experience, and it's a lot more fun to program. So we'll be taking a look at that later on, and maybe BT will be able to be chatting about that. We'll also be chatting to BT about his career. I think Chris and I were both super massive fans of a lot of the original early stuff, and I really like some of the later stuff as well. So hopefully we'll get to all that. What's happening, Chris? Update.
I'm trying to find him. Trying to get. Hold on a second. He is calling. So BT. Hold on. So let's hang up and hold on. If I go and add BT, let's see.
Yeah. What is your? If you have any questions for BT, just drop it in the chat. And if
Hopefully.
hold on.
Are we there?
Okay. Let's see if we can. What have we got? We got Chris. Oh yes. Look. Okay.
Yay!
Oh, no audio.
No audio, sir.
Okay, is this? Okay, I'm just there. Where we go? There's one there. Let's see. Okay.
Hey, this is professional.
This is good stuff, isn't it?
This is why we do test calls.
Yes, I would normally we do a test call, but BT couldn't get on for that, so we are just.
Hi.
Hello, we cannot. Can you hear us? We cannot hear you.
You can hear us? We can't hear you, buddy.
Why can we not hear him?
Don't know. I mean, if anyone can sort out this audio problem in the world,
Totally.
I'm pretty sure it's sure it's BT.
Okay, let's see. I'm gonna try and.
So probably hasn't used Skype in a long time. If you go to audio video settings.
I'm just gonna move this. This is so pro.
Can you hear me?
Yes!
Yes! Yes!
How many producers does it take to work Skype, right?
Okay, now all we need is to get Chris back into
All you need to just shove me in. How are you, Bran? How are you?
I'm brilliant. It's so nice to see you guys. How you getting on there?
It was, I don't know if you know the saying. There was a saying over here from a football manager, and that was called squeaky bum time.
I don't, but I want to know what that means. Please share.
Squeaky bum times means that you're starting to slightly shit yourself.
Okay. There we go.
I've been there. I've been there a lot over the last 24 hours, if I'm being honest.
I know. Look, I'm sure it is an incredibly busy time for you. Thank you so much for joining us. We have got a live chat here that is so hyped to see you and have you on. We couldn't have done it in a more unprofessional manner.
That was pretty impressive. We did an impressive job at being unprofessional to start. So now we're going to up our game.
Well, I'm
so excited to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. Listen, congratulations on Stutter Edit. It is a stunning new plugin.
Yeah, it genuinely it does. I mean, we were just talking about that there. I use Stutter Edit 1 quite a lot, and 2 just seems to fix so many sort of workflow issues with it and stuff that it just makes the whole experience just far more inducive to actually making your own patches. I thought the last time it was a bit tricky to actually sort of get into it, but now it just seems so much easier to, and especially like the sort of the envelopes and stuff are so much easier to use, and it's great. So yeah, I've been playing a lot with it today.
I love it, man. I agree totally too about that it's so much easier to work with and to make patches in. And that our envelope fancy LFO thing, I nicknamed TVM, stands for time variant modulator, because it's kind of not quite an envelope.
Yep.
It's kind of not quite an LFO. And because you can snap points to grid and slew from audio rate all the way down to rhythms, it's a bit of this unique sort of bespoke type of modulation source. And man, that alone, I was quite literally 20 minutes ago, I was on with Blake Lewis, who's on American Idol, and walking him through on FaceTime, using that while he's making a patch. So obviously he's a singer and a beatboxer, right? And so I said, well, yeah, just turn the freeze on, so you're holding a little bit in the buffer there, and then just start singing and adjust the TBM in real time. And he was completely blown away. He's like, I could never do anything like this with the first Stutter edit.
Yeah.
So it's thrilling to see people actually using it now.
Yeah.
I felt guilty, guys. I've had it to myself for like a year. It's like crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that is the thing about it, that like I've used Stutter Edit loads, but previously the way I kind of used it was I would just get all the presets and like run them all sequentially on an audio track and like master that down, and then I would sort of use the cut up bits and sort of move the audio about. But this one, the real time, seems a lot tighter. The effects sound tighter. It just all seems like a lot more practical in terms of, you know, using it in a track. So well done, good stuff.
I loved on the live broadcast you did yesterday, the automating the pre-delay using the time slew for the pre-delay. It just sounded absolutely amazing.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's so funny. Like when we started working on that Reverb, I seriously considered breaking that out into its own plugin, because immediately the algorithm that we started building with, which is, you know, just is that
Isotope's new algorithms from the acquisition that they did? Because they get a new reverb company recently, and they're starting to use some of that stuff.
They did. They did. They bought a company that makes just absolutely wonderful.
It's the guy who designed the original lexicon algorithms, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
It sure is. Yeah. They do the algorithms for some of my favorite of those algorithms. They have a thing called Phoenix Verb. There's a bunch of them that are, you know, these very immersive multi-channel algorithms. So no, it's not that at all. Those guys are trying to make these spaces that are very organic and realistic sounding, and doing an amazing job at it. This is quite literally, I mean, you know, you've been playing around with it. It's quite literally the opposite. Like, as we started to build this algorithm just out of, you know, delay lines, which is how you build reverb algorithms, one of the first things I noticed, you mentioned the pre-delay, is that when you scale a pre-delay, which what other reverb does that, right? Like you would never scale the pre-delay of a reverb over time. But I noticed immediately with the initial algorithm that it made these crazy pitch artifacts. Yeah. And so the you know, all the folks I was working with were like, okay, well, we got to change that because that's wrong. And I'm like, are you joking? That's like the coolest thing about it. Amplify all that weirdness, you know? So it really is this reverb that does all of these rhythmic effects to the different parameters, but in real time. And like I said, I considered pulling that out and making its own plugin, because that reverb module alone is just crazy.
It could still happen. It could still happen. I think, you know, once you look at these things. Tick is, we were talking beforehand, and I was saying to Phil, this probably wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for you. Yeah. Because me and Phil bonded over your music.
Yeah, big time. I mean, normally when we have a guest on, you sort of have to research and then you ask them for their history. But we were so ingrained in what you were doing from, you know, EMA, ESCM, and movement and still. Like, I mean, we have totally obsessed over movement.
Obsessed.
Just running down the way up the harmonies in those bits, and hip hop phenomenon, the choppy bit, and we just listen to it. Just how do you do it? You know what I mean? So that's sort of like. That whole period was, you know, so influenced by your production. So there you go. Thanks very much.
Guys.
You know, it's I just obsessed over how I would sit and dissect. And by the way, I used Logic because of you. I was curious, and I read in 1999 that you were on Logic, and I went, that's it. I'm going to Logic. If it's good enough for BT, I'm moving. And I moved over to Logic, and then I think subsequently read you were on every other DAW in the world, and I was like, oh.
No, don't get me wrong. I love Logic, and Logic is kind of like, I don't know if there's like I always try to like translate my expressions, but like we would say like a warm blankie, right? Like it's like this thing that I've used literally for eons, and I know it so well. It's like a comfy pair of shoes, you know what I mean? So I'm constantly using Logic, but I'm always telling, because a lot of times on, you know, socials and stuff, fans will be like, yo, so what DAW are you working in? And I always say I'm DAW agnostic, which is it's totally true. I mean, I use them differently for different things. Like, Logic is this very comfortable environment for me, particularly for mixing and editing. I find myself working in there all the time when I get to the stem phase of things. But it's pretty crazy. Like, I'll use everything you can imagine from, Reaper to FL Studio to Ableton. I use quite a bit. And Cubase I use exclusively for scoring. So I couldn't score without Cubase.
And do you not get confused jumping from one and going, what's the keystroke for that? What's the key command for that? Do you not get sort of a bit muddled, or do you just know them inside out?
No, dude, my brain hurts all the time. All the time, all day, every day. Yeah, no, well, so what I try to do to minimize that kind of brain ache is this is crazy, but sharing a little kind of workflow hack here. I actually obsessively go through all the DAWs that I work in. I mean, the big three for me really are Ableton, which I've used for years for live performance, and it's just so much fun to like write loops and arrange in. So the big three for me are Ableton, Logic, which again, my old pair of shoes, I love it to pieces, and then Cubase for scoring. So what I've done, obviously in Ableton, sadly, and I wish they would add this, you can't change your key commands, right? So what I've done is I've kind of combined key commands that I've used over the years with Ableton commands, and I'm constantly keeping all the DAWs up to date with my key commands. So I actually can switch between DAWs. Okay. I don't know if you can see this here, but I've got this little piece here. I don't know if you can see this. It's called a Stream Deck.
Yeah.
You know these? A Stream Deck, you probably can't even see the front of it.
Yeah, it's Envato thing with the...
That's right. Yeah. So I use that too, and then I've made setups for every one of the DAWs where I've put the icons in it, and I've got it fade in and fade out, and I've got a key command for that, but I also have it within arm's reach for each of the DAWs on my Stream Deck with a nice little icon, and it definitely helps with that sort of brain ache of switching between DAWs because they are wildly different, So,
we were talking about movement and still life, and back in the day, and some of the sort of granular effects that you were doing on the vocals, and we were having an argument about whether it was GRM tools or the Kaima synth thing that you had.
Ask me specifically, I'll tell you. I mean, both of those were in a tremendous amount of play at that time. Now, I love GRM tools. Sadly, my Kima is not set up in here, but I'm planning on setting up a rig just with my Kima system. For those of you, listening to this that are interested in all this kind of esoteric sound design stuff, over the years, I've gotten really into something called CDP. I don't know if you've heard of it. Right. It's Composer Desktop Project. It used to be a couple $100s. It's a gentleman in Bath, England, named Trevor Wishart. He is a digital signal processing absolute genius, one of the greatest minds walking amongst us insofar as digital signal processing. Yeah. And I found that you can do a lot of these Kima-esque functions in CDP. Now, everybody kind of take a deep breath. You have to do it in the terminal. So it's all command line, and it's like really a brain ache, but it's so worth it. Their Brassage algorithms in there are just incredible. But at that time, it would have been, depends on what you're asking for, because I have a decent memory. I would probably be able to remember what it was for what track, but GRM Tools was definitely in play at that time. And then as well as Kima. And then something I didn't talk about much, but that I used a lot during that time was C-Sound and Super Collider. So yeah. So you mentioned the hip hop phenomenon. All the ambient sounds in that whole track are all created in Super Collider. And I'll never forget being at Kev Bieber's house and sitting on the floor with my laptop, and Kev was working on his Atari ST, and I don't know, Adam was off somewhere on the phone or something, and Kev and I are there nerding out, and I'm sat on the ground with my laptop, and he kept going, dude, what are the sounds you're making? And so I ended up, we ended up sampling all these things out of an old MacBook that were all Super Collider, and the entire ambient bed for the hip hop phenomenon is all coded. So sampled into an E4. So for those interested.
we used to sit and we used to have two studios together, and we used to meet in the kitchen at lunchtime and then discuss, what are you doing, and we would sit and discuss how is he chopping those loops, and we'd go back up and in Logic I would get your beat and I would chop it all up in 30 seconds and then put them on different tracks, and then a bit crusher in one and a delay in the other, and trying to recreate
Basically Stutter edit.
Basically, and Stutter edit now, I hit a key and going, yeah, that's it all done there, and 10 times better. So it's like
it's funny. Richard Devine posted this incredible clip yesterday on Instagram of him demoing Stutter Edit, and I saw one of the comments made me laugh so hard. They're like, for the brave soul that would actually try to attempt something like this by hand, this would probably take you 50 hours and it would suck. And now you can just hit one key on your keyboard and get this epic wormhole effect, that's all these different DSPs doing all these crazy modulations. So they're probably right too. I mean, honestly, between you guys and me, I did this by hand for so many years, and was developing all these crazy techniques of layering different types of signal processing chains over top of these really complex buffer cuts. And I was even doing equations by hand where I'd say, I want to move from, I'm giving you some of my secrets. I wish you could ask me this then. Like, I want to move from 128th notes to 32nd notes, and I want to do that over a quarter note duration. So I would, and I want to do it exponentially. So I'd literally sit down, I'd write out the equation, and then I would figure out where every single slice would fall in terms of samples at 44.1 at the time of 16-bit, and it would take me to do that quarter note. Might take me, in something like the hip hop phenomenon, that might take me 2.5 hours.
Jeez.
And so, yeah, it was so hard to do. And I realized, I want to make this technique easier and more fun for myself. And also, too, I want to share it with people. And then you cut to, it's like asteroid flybys in Star Wars, and Taylor Swift see it singing through it. I'm like, crap, I never imagined this. I'm like, what? How did this happen? You know what I mean? So it's crazy.
Listening to you writing out quadratic equation stuff, Phil, we were way off the mark.
Yeah.
We were
more
just GRM
tools, more GRM tools. Just keep adding them up.
Yeah. So much of that was by hand, you guys. It really was it was so tedious to do. So it's just great. Like I said, to be able to, not only for my own work, I use this, like I said, I feel guilty. I've had it to myself for a year. I'm scoring a game right now. I'm not supposed to talk about what it is, but it's an epic, it's a big game. And I've been using it all through the game score. And I'm like, my God, to do these things, even 10 years ago, much less, movement still life time period, it just would have taken me years. I couldn't have done that much of that sort of thing. So it's thrilling to get to share it with people.
I think one of the things, you mentioned it on the live chat, I think one of the really interesting things is happy accidents are going to come from Stutter Edit too. It is jam some of the gestures out and just, you'll get these accidents and you'll see where you are.
Yeah, I agree totally. Another thing that I think that people are, I loved seeing some of the comments yesterday of people discovering, wow, you can completely bypass the buffer cutting part of the engine and use this as this very complex multi-effects rhythmic modulation sort of thing. And in fact, and I shouldn't say who it is, I want to so bad, he probably wouldn't be mad, but there's super A-lister, trance producer, everyone watching this would know who it was, but he's on our beta list and he was freaking out on it. And him and the guy that he works with sort of made a discovery and said, oh, I noticed that if you bypass the buffer area, that you can just use it as this crazy side chainer. And I said, oh, send me over a patch how you're doing that. And when they sent this patch, they were literally using the threshold of the limit rhythmically. And it's something I hadn't thought to doing and completely had bypassed the buffer area. So it gave me this crazy idea. And I made all a full bank of things that are just doing, the wet dry of a reverb, side chaining, or a chorus that's got a bit of a, instead of transgating something, taking and applying that transgate sort of sample and hold type aesthetic to the speed of a chorus. You know what I mean? Just these crazy things that aren't, buffer cutting sort of effects. They're just complex multi effects, rhythmic. So
some really cool stuff. I mean, I remember one of the effects, and you could maybe shed some light on this. I'm sure it was something really crazy, but I think it's in Dreaming when the vocal sort of tail just like goes into this granular thing and then slopes down to.
Okay, are you ready? I'm gonna pick this camera up and take you somewhere and show you what that is. Okay. It's very lo-fi. You might be disappointed.
Yeah.
Hold on. Okay. Here. I'm gonna emulate me doing it as well too. Okay. There it is. It's off. Can we see this down here?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's going like this.
Oh no! On the sampler.
Yes.
So that it was the end point.
Yeah, so it's me taking the endpoint and shrinking the endpoint on the S900 in real time. I had to do it so many times to get it right as well, but I finally got a take that I loved in the end. But yeah, that's what it was.
Oh, that's so cool.
We have obsessed over that effect for years and years and years, and you went, I was like, oh man. We had the knob sitting right in front of us all the time.
Yeah, that's
brilliant.
I
love
good.
it. Absolutely,
that's class.
Absolutely love it.
Yeah, there's so many like specific things. What we love we always talk about this as well in Running Down the Way Up when it goes into the vocal harmony bit in the breakdown, and then it just changes to that major chord that sort of comes out of the blue. It's just like, that's so good.
I have the best stories about that. Is it cool if I tell you two really quick but amazing stories? So I was in Swansea with Mike Truman, and God, I hope Mike gets to see this. I just think the world of Mike, and I think they're still out that way actually. And him and his wife is like an amazing classical musician. They've got, I don't know, 100 kids and even more farm animals. He's like super happy. So happy for him. But so Mike and I were working in his house in Swansea, and he went down in the kitchen to make tea, and I was working on headphones, and Kirsty was there with me, and so I've got Kirsty on the mic, and I keep singing that Picardy third, the one major chord, to her, and I'm like, no, the note is this, and she kept wanting to sing what is natural because you're hearing, it in minor, and of course I had to go back through and change all the instrumentation right at that one moment to accommodate that. And Mike came upstairs and he's like, "It's so out of tune. I can't make tea. You have to stop." And I was like, "No, you gotta trust me on this. I swear it's gonna be so great." So cut to is a totally true story. So cut to years later, and I'm living in Los Angeles. And I had the extraordinary honor of getting a cold phone call from Sting, right? Who still don't know how he got my phone number. And he called up and he's saying all this nice stuff. And he said, "Hey, dude, I want to do some, work together." And I was like, "Oh my God, I'm thrilled. Like I'm a huge Police fan." And so anyway, so he ended up coming out to the house, and literally the first thing out of his mouth when we sat down and we're sitting down actually having a cup of tea, and he was like, "What's that song of yours with the Picardy third in it? That's my favorite song of yours." And I was like, "You see that, Mike Truman? I gotta call Mike Truman right now." Yeah. So anyway, it's very funny.
It's an amazing lift in the middle of that song. It's just
goosebumps every time for me on that, like, because I just remember hearing that because I think we were like, waiting at the CD shop to get the album, because we knew it was coming out, and then just putting it on for the first time, and you're just hearing those bits. So that was just phenomenal.
Just so look, and this is amazing because it's discovering so many questions that we've had for probably 20 years now. Just from me. First steps into the studio, lying back and coming back from the studio and putting on Imma in the headphones and going, Jesus Christ, how do we get there? How do we get to that level? Because it just seemed so unattainable. And today, then I went back and listened to your Spirit of Grace mix of Not Over Yet.
Yeah,
and it is a masterpiece in my eyes. It's just not, it's just a masterpiece.
I have no idea what that means to me because at that time when I was doing those things, I mean, if you guys think about it, it's pretty crazy. It's like internet, right? So it was like, it really is. It's like, so the people that knew that music and were a part of the early days club scene and, that were like, for all intents and purposes, early days club kids, and then DJs and producers at that time. Like it meant so much to this group of people, but like those are the only people that knew about it. And so it's so funny now. I was having this conversation with a friend of mine from that time. I'm not going to say who it is too, but I mean, you absolutely, just from what we're talking about, this is someone that you know and you love their work, someone I've done a lot of work with. He said he was having an argument in some message board forum about who had invented the breakdown. And he was like, look, dude, I can actually point you on a timeline to when music didn't have a breakdown, and then BT started making records and putting these massive, like 64 bar things in it. And he was saying in this forum thread, he was saying they actually made fun of him for doing that. And these big snare builds and stuff. I remember reading in Music Magazine or DJ Magazine back at that time, like, how much longer is he going to make the snare build? And now it's like, it's a staple in dance music, and it didn't exist. And it was just because some crazy yank that was like making records in, his bedroom in his
there's
house.
So much in those like first, especially the first two. There's so much in those first two albums that defined so much of that next sort of 5 years. All the those acids. That's what you were doing with acid sounds and comb filters or whatever. I don't know whether it was. Did you have an E6400 or something, or the Emu sampler with the Z plane filters that were making those acids? I don't know how you were doing them, but they were just those like throaty sort of sounds. It was just, yeah,
totally. So I can tell you some of what that was. So at that time, I would have been using. I don't know if you can see it from this angle, but back there somewhere, there's I've got my Geno 106. It's all modded out now. It's a Kiwi 106, which, by the way, anybody watching this, it's like an analog synth nerd. Those Kiwi upgrades are like, those are like in every synth I have. They're just so insane.
Yeah.
So Geno 106 would have been on bass duties back then. But for the acid stuff, I mean, combination of, there's definitely some real acid. I'm looking at my Devilfish. I've got the second one. Josh Wank has the first one, and I have the second Devilfish mod 303. So would have been 303. You're going to be surprised. So a lot of the throaty stuff that you're talking about is different sorts of wave shaping algorithms in the you buckle up. So because you think of it as a sampler, okay, is the Kurzweil K2500 is this oddball out sampler, kind of like, I don't know, some of the Yamaha samplers. There was a really overlooked sampler. Most of us were using Akai's and emulators, right? Yeah. So the K2500 has synthesis modes in it, and it's got types of synthesis modes that do wave shaping. And so a lot of those acid sounds are the K2500, and much of it is through guitar pedals. Interestingly, if you listen to the last track that I released on Armada called Atari's Lantern, I pulled that box out, and I've been using it again over the last year. So a bunch of the music coming out this summer has that real ESCM era melodic acid vibe to it. It's the actual boxes that I used to do that stuff with.
Yeah.
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
And how in those days, this is pre-internet, pre-YouTube and stuff. Brad, how did you discover? How did you know about wave shaping and stuff like that in those times? It was, how did you research and discover all these things?
That's an amazing question. So again, I wish that you guys were here and I could show you around.
We have to get on a plane soon and come over, because I love to see that studio.
Evie, you got to do it. So here, let's look back here and I'll show you. I've got this little bookshelf back here. I don't know if you can see this, but in this bookshelf are some of my favorite books. Okay. And in here, we've got things that I used to read when I was a kid. I'm going to grab a random one. So here's, you see that? Synthesis and computers. Yeah. So and this is, about Bob Moog, Roger Powell, and Craig Anderton. And guess what? Craig Anderton, who I'm a massive fan of. I've literally read every single one of his books about synthesis. You want to talk about full circle? Craig Anderton wrote the manual for Stutter Edit.
Wow.
How cool is that?
That's crazy.
So, and we're talking about that dude wrote the manual for the Prophet 5. He is like, you want to talk about synthesis legends, you know. So I read books, honestly, man. I mean, that's what I did. I was, you know, we didn't have Sound on Sound, so I read Keyboard Magazine, and starting when I was going way back, I was a classical music brat. I played the piano. I played the piano Suzuki method when I was a kid, not because my parents wanted me to. My parents are, you know, educated, smart people. I don't even understand what they do. They're so smart. And I was like the oddball out kid that wanted to play music. And so my parents allowed me to take piano lessons. And I was lucky enough to study with a teacher that taught this, what was a new method at the time, Suzuki method. And then I got to go to Washington Conservatory, which was quite literally in the back building of a church, and like this musty old building. And you know, he would teach my professor Satiris Vlahopoulos, starting when I was 8 years old, would teach me soprano, alto, tenor, bass, writing, and all this kind of stuff. And then around the age of probably 10 or 11, I discovered the music that was happening in England, and bands like Depeche Mode and New Order and Cabaret Voltaire and all the early new wave stuff. And I thought, I want to know, how are people making these sounds? Like, it was, you know, I was like studying Chopin and, you know, Beethoven, Brahms, Bach, all this stuff. And I'm hearing the English new wave and then early breakdancing records, Man Parrish, Mantronics, Africa Bambaataa.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then Kraftwerk's Krautrock, but still they kind of slot into that whole thing. And I was like, dude, what is this? Like, I have to be able to make these sounds. And so basically, you know, after years of plowing driveways by hand, mowing lawns, quite literally till my hands bled, delivering newspapers, I started buying my first synthesizers, and I read books like Craig Anderton's books about synthesis. I taught myself all that stuff. There was nobody to teach me it.
Awesome.
So
amazing. I think genuinely amazing. And the other bit that I find really then interesting is that you were this kid in Maryland in America that was totally on the money in English music in like 1994, 95. Sasha, Digweed, those guys, you know, Jeff Oakes and stuff. You were right, you know, your records were like an epiphany to clubbers in the UK. And it's that disconnect of how can a kid from Maryland and not be a part of that scene get it so right?
Yeah, it is a really wild thing. So, I mean, the first and foremost, I mean, the reason why any of this happened is because Sasha, who you mentioned, heard one of my early records, and he literally rang me up on the phone and said, what you're doing is really special, and I want to bring you over here, and I want to go into the studio with you, and people need to hear your music. And not only will I never forget that, and I am in a tremendous sort of debt to Sasha for giving me that opportunity, but I remember it because along my journey, I've discovered so much remarkable talent, and I feel this incredible sense of obligation when I find someone that really has a gift to lift them up. And a good example of that, you know, over the last sort of 10 years is someone like AU5, who now is just blowing up. And like literally, you know, we met, and Fractal too, that, you know, works with him. And we met them. They were 16 years old, came to a show of mine, gave me a CD. And my wife and I, we couldn't even find them. They didn't even put an email address on there. We found their parents, and I'm not even joking you, found their parents, and like literally we're like having them over for dinner, sitting them down at the kitchen table, and like, okay, so you want to make sure to eat your greens, pay your taxes, and you want to make sure to high pass filter everything. Quite literally, like, you know, like schooling them because someone gave me that gift. And so, you know, I don't know how it was that I had my finger on the pulse like that at that time. But what I can say about it is I was heavily influenced by English new wave and by classical music and by the kind of emotional feeling of those things. And I think, you know, house music and what now is called trance, but those sort of things were very static. You know, the arrangements were like, there weren't big peaks and valleys in them and builds and drops and all these kind of things. And I sort of applied the classical music aesthetic to electronic music, because they were the two things I know. It wasn't
it had just
design.
a completely like different level of emotion than tracks that came before it. You know, it was like, you know, these were club tracks to make you dance, but then, you know, the stuff you were doing was like so emotional, like Embracing the Sunshine stuff were just like such epic, glorious tracks. It's unbelievable, really, like, you know, compared to what had gone before.
Much to me, guy. Yeah, that really means a lot to me, and I have such like incredible memories of those days. I really hope at a point, because we had such a great friend group back then, and some of the experiences that we had, you know, like car boot parties and driving out to barns with Sash and John, you know, and literally emptying the barn animals out to pasture so that we could set up sound systems. I hope somebody writes a book about that at some point, because the stories, I mean, there's stories for the stories. They're so good.
Yeah. Well, it was such an inspiration. I think basically learning what a seventh chord was from Embracing the Sunshine. Just, I was like, this is like a new thing. What's this? How do you get that sort of emotional vibe?
Wait,
it was like
another note up there. Where'd that come from? Yeah.
What is the piano? What was the piano sound that you always used in those sort of early, the Not Over Yet remix?
Great. You guys are coming with all the good questions. That piano, everybody buckle up.
U2
Huh? So that piano, okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. It's one I've been asked before, but I haven't talked about publicly. So now I'm going to give you a hint. It's a Rompler, but it's a very sort of, I made the patch. All the envelopes are very bespoke, and it's filtered and all that kind of stuff. It's a Roland D70. That's what that piano patch is. Yeah. Go ahead. Go for it.
I had a U220. That was one of my first keyboards, and I thought I was going, there's a tinge of U220 in there, so the D70 works out.
Yeah, D70. And also, too, during that time, exclusively, I used these, I don't know if you can see these guys, but I used these reverbs on that. So it's a reverb and a delay. I'm trying to see what you're seeing. So down here, this is a Roland SRV 330 and a Roland SDE 330. Yeah. And they were Roland's attempt at the whole Q sound.
Yeah,
sort of
specialized
stuff. Yeah, azimuth, trying to, you know, make things that come outside of the speakers sort of sound. And I still use those. They're just, please don't everybody go buy those on Reverb. Look for parts.
They trickled.
They're amazing boxes.
They trickled that stuff down to. They trickled that stuff down to the Boss. There was a Boss Effects one that came out with the same reverb as that, like 4 years later or something. I was working in a music store at the time, and I was like, "It's got that Roland spatialized reverb," and I was like putting it on everything when I was doing demos. So yeah,
that's great. I love it.
Guys, should we get to some demos? Genuinely, because I would love to spend the next 3 hours just talking to you about sounds, about old records, about your time in England and stuff. I would absolutely love it. But I'm sure I've sent you a link on the Skype chat there, Brian.
All right, let's see.
And that'll open up. Now you might need to get headphones. That'll open up a web page for you, which you can listen.
Okay. Let's see here.
And we're going to go through some audio demos.
Have you got headphones handy, or?
I can score some headphones. Yeah, stand by 1 second.
I would hope so. He's in one of the world's nicest studios.
We could go for our halftime break if you wanted.
Yes, we could do that. Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay, so we've got just a wee 3-minute compilation of some quick tech tips, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
Today I'm going to show you a classic melodic house and techno lead sound. Now we've already got a saw wave in the first oscillator, so that's fine, we'll leave it where it is. We'll go straight to the second oscillator, raise the voice number to 1, and we'll raise the semitones to 7. Now the next thing to do is to add a filter, so we'll go into analog and Mogi LP, and then we'll bring the cutoff filter both down, and then bring up the envelope amount to about 75%-ish. And then the sustain of the filter envelope up as well, and then bring the decay down slightly. And now we're going to right click on the cutoff and assign it to the mod wheel. We're going to add some default ping pong delay, and then same again with reverb. And there we go, that's your tip for today. Today I'm going to show you a quick tip for major and minor scales. So I've got a track on the go here. And I want to get in an arpeggiator, so I'm going to drop in a MIDI track and loop it. And I know the bass line is in E flat, so I want my arpeggiator to be in E flat minor. And there's really only two scales you ever need to know here. There's A minor and C major. They're essentially almost identical in that they use only the white notes, but A minor starts with A, C major starts with C. As I want a minor scale, I'm going to start with A minor. And chuck a note in here and send it off the grid, and then I'm going to copy and paste it onto the white notes, and then copy and paste that a couple of octaves up, so I can drop it down to E flat, hit the fold button, and now I have the E flat minor scale. I've got a lead line here that sounds like this. And I've also set up a return channel with some reverb that I'm just going to turn on. It's 100% wet and extended to about 13 seconds decay time, so it sounds like this. Now I'm going to add a compressor to the return channel. I'm going to have the sidechain activated, turn off the EQ, and I'm going to have it inputted from channel 9, which is the original lead synth. And I'm going to turn the ratio right up, and I'm going to turn the gain of the original up a fair amount to about 10 dB too. And now what this is doing is it's basically being sidechained by the original notation, so now it'll have almost a reverse reverb effect, and it sounds like this.
Hi guys, we're back kind of somewhere.
I take it you're having some real issues there, Phil, with us all jumping around.
Yes,
is that right?
it's a wee bit challenging, but
it is.
Sorry, Phil. My
It's not-
apologies.
No, it's a Skype problem. Skype seems to change the frame rate in OBS, so it all depends on sort of internet connection, whether it jumps to a big frame or small frame. So please bear with us as we're getting it. We're also trying to get Brian set up with a link to hear demos.
yeah.
Listen, if for some reason that's not streaming, just play it through the mic, man. I can tell. I mean,
Okay.
I've listened to things off. Forget about it. Like I can tell when things are sitting right.
Okay, I wonder why is it coming through your. I wonder what else I could do if I could bust this back out somehow.
You can definitely bust like with Soundflower or one of those. You can.
Yeah, well,
you,
have
Mac
you got?
audio.
Have you got a DAW on that laptop? Actually, no. It would take
Yeah,
too,
yeah,
it would
yeah,
take
I've
too
got it
long
on
maybe
and
to
I'm
install it with it.
Oh no, so you'd have to download the plugin. So you would.
Yeah.
It should be like.
Are you
just
getting
should come
getting
through.
any audio through your DAW? Like if you go in or in your browser, if you go to say YouTube or something, do you hear anything through it?
Let me check.
I just want to thank Dom Kane for those 3 tips there. We're a segment that we're calling 3 for free or 3 in 3, which is 3 1-minute tech tips. I think they're brilliant because they're 1 minute and you get a tech tip and they're done. So while they're sorting that out, I'm trying to fill desperately and look professional.
I know. I'm there's just so much stuff that is not.
I can hear from YouTube. Just
You can.
I can perfectly. Yeah.
Okay, so
And you're not hearing that.
No. That VU meter is not kind of propagating in that browser window. If that's important,
Okay.
just play it through your mic, you guys. It's all good.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Phil, you need to turn up your speakers then.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll just run with it.
Okay. Let's try this.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna unplug my headphones. Go for it.
So this track comes in from Phil. Who's this?
Okay. This is Toby Pierce.
Toby. Toby sent us a lovely email saying that he hasn't been able to make it for the last few weeks to watch the show. He loves the show, and it's been like a real lift for him through lockdown to be part of the community. And he would just be so honoured if Brian could get a listen through the track. So I'm going to shut up. And
Please, let's hear it.
Do you know what the other thing we could do is if I could send you a Dropbox link with. Can I do that?
Are you able to hear that, Brian?
Yeah, I can totally hear it. Yeah, crank it up on your end.
Let's see. What about if you go to that Dropbox link, you could hear the track there as well. You could try and sync it up or something.
I don't think that'll work.
No.
Oh, this sounds great, man. Yeah, hear that.
There we go.
It's great.
Lovely chords.
Fantastic. I love that Crescendo rhythm. The electric clock is really nice with done. Hey.
So, I don't want to blow people's eardrums. I'm really nervous of speaking.
You guys, wow. I don't know about you guys, but I have these epiphany experiences when, we ask fans to submit things where I'm like, wow, like I have a lot of talented fans. Apparently you guys do too, because holy crap, that's really, really well done. I have some thoughts. Can I make some comments?
Totally.
So first of all, I think that the parts are absolutely lovely. I love the electro pluck. I like that Traceo type rhythm. I love the enharmonic passing notes. So like your Mixolydian your Dorian 4-chord type stuff that he's got going on in the breakdown there. I have a weird recommendation with that is the thirds of those chords. So it's a cool trick to try, and that might be a finished master. If it is, ignore this. It's amazing. I would play that out. That's like fantastic, that track. Like 2 thumbs up for me. So if you're not done and you're open to a suggestion, what I would say is I would take that chord and take every note of the chord and splay it out to different instances of whatever plugin is doing that. And the third of that chord, I would turn it down and sneak it in from the breakdown until you finally get back to the drop, because it's so sort of special. And I can imagine on a dance floor, things like that, these kind of interesting harmonic changes. Like a good example of that is skylarking. When people first heard that, they like, you're listening to it and it's this repetitive thing. It's pedaling around the 4 and the 5 chord, but it's got, it has basically the sharp 11 of the key in it. So it sounds Lydian, right? And then it's not until the breakdown where when that root changes, it seats it in minor, that it's like this, it's like this amazing sort of release feeling. And this track, what he's got going on harmonically there, I'd love to see him creep in the third of that chord back up into the drop. So that's my only thought. I think the sounds are great. The rhythmic programming is great. The mix sounds great. I mean, dude, how about this? I like that so much. Find a way through the guys to PM me. I would love to have you do a remix. That is fantastic.
I've got his email. Are you for real?
100%. Send his details over. I would love to have him do a remix.
Well, there you go. I wish I'd put my track in tonight. That's amazing, Toby. You've sent me an email earlier on today, a beautiful email, lovely email. I know you're having family issues and stuff, and there you go. Mr. BT would like me to pass on your details. I'll forward that to you tonight, and you guys can converse and get something sorted. That is just mind-blowing. So look, let's guys, we're sorry tonight that this is a bit of a technical issue, because Brian, normally we send a link to the artist and they can hear full quality DAW audio through their headphones and can really judge. So we're just having to blast it through speakers and down a line to Brian. Look, we'll muddle through as best we can. What we'll probably do, Phil, is play, a minute into the track, let Brian hear 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and then stop and he can give comments on that. How about that? Sound cool? Okay. I'll not talk because he's to crank up the monitors, and I'll come through like some God of Thunder Thor.
Yeah, fair enough.
The opposition in whatever color uniform they have. You know what I'm talking about. So relax. Just relax.
Okay.
This is amazing.
Nice. Wow. You guys there's some serious talent around here. Yeah, I'm blown away. This is great too. So, full disclosure, kind of out of the sound palette of things I would play out, but it's the kind of things that I actually enjoy listening to. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, some stuff that I love that's going on in there. First of all, I think the overall mix is sitting really nicely. I love the anticipating the snare, like the 16th, the 1E and before the snare. It gives it such a nice kind of groove. It's got a really nice pocket, swinging nice. Let's see, what else do I love? I like the vocal bits are really good. Great rhythmic programming. I would say, so when you I do have a suggestion, which is when you when that sort of 16th notey acid bit enters, the really resonant acid bit, I would say I really like how you don't continue that into the drop, how it's like it precedes the breakdown, it carries through the breakdown, and then it's a hard out to the drop. It's kind of that techno style thing. I call it the inverse drop, right? And it's great. You use that very effectively. My one note about that is when you introduce that really resonant acid sound, I would say don't feel limited that you have to leave the filter and the resonance point where they are. I would sort of scale them down from when you enter, when they enter, all the way through that breakdown, and then pull them out really hard like that. So I don't think you necessarily need to stay at a fixed point, but yeah, I mean, man, mix is killer. Like this, again, this is something that can be played out immediately. This is great.
I did love that track. I love the vibe of the track. We put it in because it was something a bit different. It was something, just a bit chuggier and a bit sort of darker and a bit, groovy. So,
yeah, that
was Kitama.
Okay,
Kitama.
Cool project. Yeah, reminds like early. Do you guys remember the label Tribal Records?
Yeah.
It's got that early tribal sort of groove, but obviously very updated. His mix is very modernized and stuff, but yeah, that's great. I love it.
Love it. Well done. Thank you very much. This is Young Guns. Who's this by, Phil? I can't read your screen. Privka, if you're on the chat, Privka, say hello. Brian's going to have a listen to the track. This is a breaks, I think it is, and we know you kind of sometimes love a good old break, so we thought we'd throw it in tonight.
Do I ever?
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
It's epic. What a track, what a track. What do you think?
Such good stuff. Yeah, I love, it's so rare now, isn't it, that you hear something that's got some really interesting changes in it that leave you thinking like, wow, where are we going next? And I really got that feeling listening to this. I think it's very professionally produced. My recommendations are actually, I don't know, might be helpful, but are pretty simple. So I love the feeling of the kind of drum. Well, so first of all, I'm a sucker for like the liquid kind of drum and bass sort of stuff and big 7 chords, as you guys know, and 9s and 11s and all that. So I love the progression at the beginning. I don't know if this is because I'm hearing it over the way that we're listening, but I would say that maybe those string bits in the beginning, those string bits, could be a hair loud. And so my recommendation would be to maybe sidechain them just a teeny bit with like a really quick dip to them, and maybe pull them back a dB and a half would be my recommendation. When you go into the more pedal tone section, but it's still drum and bass, I'd say it'd be nice to introduce a low pass filter on those same strings, just kind of for a textural variation. And then also too, the breaks at the beginning, and not because I'm in love with it, like you actually need Stutter Edit 2 to play around with on those breaks because it will be ridiculous. So you really do. One of the things I was noticing is like the high complexity of fills in that. There's a couple bits that have 30-second notes, but I'm telling you, 4 or 5 really tidy little gestures at the beginning in the break program.
Especially when you're talking about before, we don't need to do the buffer edit stuff, even some filters and, you know, the flange and the comb filter and stuff in there just to give it some extra dimension, potentially.
Yeah, exactly.
A really strong track in that, as you say, Brian, it goes through 3 different iterations and changes and develops and is interesting. And that's so rare in music today, isn't it?
It's absolutely beautiful. And I totally agree. It's like, it keeps you guessing, and you don't hear that really in records anymore. I love a turntablism of bits too. Like there's some really great musical elements. So yeah, that's a killer track.
Well,
sure.
well done. Well, Phil, do you want to grab one more and then what have we got? Who's this now? I'm trying to read your. I listened to this earlier on. It's hard to pronounce the name sometimes, isn't it? It's but I listened to this earlier on. I love this track. So guys, check us out. There you go. What do you think about crowd noises in the track? I'm on the fence about it. I don't know whether.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of crowd noises in it. I think you hope that that's going to happen in the club. I don't think you necessarily want that.
I have to tell you, I've got to tell you such a funny story about this. So there is another. I just don't want to like bust anyone here, but and he's a friend. I've made a bunch of music with him. There's someone that showed me that as a trick, and he was like, don't you know that if you put on your downlifters like a big blast of everyone freaking out, that everyone hears it and it makes them freak out when that happens? And I'm like, I don't know, that's a little cheeky, man. Like that's kind of...
Yeah, maybe just for your own mixes when you're playing out, just have a sample just with the crowd noise. You just sort of weak in every once in a while.
Right.
Do you know what it reminds me of at the moment? Because the football is played behind closed doors. When they broadcast it, they're putting on fake crowds, and it's kind of going. It's kind of a little bit like that.
Yeah. So here's the thing, right? Like that track is awesome.
I love the track.
Yeah, you don't need that as an element to. You've got that great driving 16th note bass line, the kind of 606y sort of hi hat. Reminds me of like early Roland, XO Xbox jams. It's just got a ton of energy, and it's a nice arrangement as well too. I think that's the only element. I think all of us would agree.
Yeah. I mean, you would use a lot of atmospheres in your tracks, sort of almost ambient sounds and stuff like that, to sort of fill that same space. So I don't think it needs to be a crowd, but you can use like white noise, ambient, sort of different sounds, or something that, maybe an ambient sound with more reverb, or like grain, put that through a granulizer, so you're getting the same sort of tonal bed, as it were, but it's not as obviously a crowd. You're still getting that, maybe some sort of an atmosphere in the background.
Yeah, the feeling like of it. It's so funny you mentioned that, because we're working on this big, and I mean, I've been working on it for like over a year now. We're working on this big master course, and it's something I've wanted to do forever. It's like all these crazy techniques that I've come up with over the years. And one of the things so we did a little survey asking people, like, what are your pain points? What are the things that you get stuck on? And something that came up over and over again, I'd never thought about, was how do you fill space in a track when the track feels too empty? It's literally like probably 100 people asked that same question. So it set me thinking. It's interesting you mentioned a granulizer. I realized that over the years I've come up with about, 20, 25 different techniques for filling out the space in a track. So I sat down and writing them all out as lessons and stuff. But I noticed that is like a common pain point for people. Like, how do you make something sound big, right, but still have not too many elements, right? Like, it's not, piles and piles of layers. It's just got this feeling of depth and, a big sort of sound, but not overly complex. And there's an art to that for sure. But I'd lose the crowd noise, and it's a track great. So there you go.
Skylarking is a very good track for that, I think. The way you've used reverbs and, sustained tails on different, it's almost like you're automating the reverb decays and stuff over the whole track. And
do you want to know what that is? So I just mentioned that it's like I've parsed it out into roughly 25 techniques. That one is really specific, and I wrote this whole thing just about skylarking. So what that is, check this out, is I put the track on after I'd written it, okay? And this is going to blow your mind. I took a kick, a snare, and a hi-hat, and I played kick and snare and hi-hat over top of it. Time corrected, flex markered it, time corrected it all, OCD'd out, right? Then I took that, okay? And then I played that in the room, and I played my Yamaha CP70 over top of it. I recorded it to a cassette, like an actual old cassette.
Right.
And I sampled it, and I put it back in the track, very soft, and that's filling out the space of the whole track.
Wow.
So you're almost like it's like the ambience mics of drums, or is it kind of that thought process of let's capture the room here, let's capture some liveness.
Something we've actually talked about on numerous weeks on this show, about how a lot of sort of less experienced producers, their tracks sound almost like they're just like straight out of the DAW. There's nothing sort of organic that sort of is in there, that sort of, because I think your brain very quickly tunes into a track that just sounds like, it's a plug-in straight to the master bus and not much else. I think your brain is also tuned into when they hear like a live performance, or they hear sort of human dynamics in a track, and I think it elevates a track so much. So that what you're saying there makes complete sense in terms of Skylark. And again, it's another really emotional track. It feels so organic. There's, sort of the density of it as well is epic,
Yeah, and it's constantly changing throughout the track. Like I said, I'm giving away a little here, but this idea of reamping and remiking, and also too of playing things over top that are live, and using, it doesn't have, that's the whole thing, is I think people get hung up on, I need this really expensive signal chain, I need some SSL compressor, or I need whatever. You really don't. It's like, you can get on eBay and get old cassette players, old Dolby noise boxes for like $10. And let me show you a box here really quick. So this is Yeah, go for it. What were you going to say, Phil?
I was going to just say, somebody in the chat has just said, this is BT, the guy who time corrected raindrops.
Yep, that's me. Yeah, sorry, not sorry. Okay, I don't know if you can see down here. This box right here, this is made by Toa, and I think it's called a 330. Again, now I'm seriously going to kill you guys if you all go on eBay and the prices.
So what's that?
So it's a 3-channel delay line. Okay, so all it is a delay with modulation. But that thing on vocals, this is a perfect example of the sort of box I'm talking about, where that thing costs less than a plugin. I mean, I got that for probably $40, so like 30 quid.
Wow.
Okay, for that box, and there's nothing in the world that sounds that good at widening vocals. So my recommendation for young producers that are growing up in the box is, man, read some of the old techniques. Like we used to stick, I still do. We used to stick R-tone speakers inside a piano and use the piano soundboard as reverb. The more ways you can come out of the box and capture that sound of being out of the box and incorporate it in the box sounds, that's when you're going to get something that really hits people here. So there you go.
I think the biggest takeaway tonight is your insatiable appetite for experimenting, for thinking outside the box, about thinking, going, what if I put a speaker in a grand piano and use that as a springboard reverb, or turning the end point of a sample on a sampler, hand doing it and recording those. I just find it absolutely incredible and absorbing that you do all this, and I can't tell you how much of a fan I have been. I didn't do one pick of research for this, because I know your career inside out. I know exactly what you do inside out, and it's just been an absolute honor to finally get to chat to you.
Oh man, I get this the same for me. I meant what I said in an email. I'm a fan of you guys. Like, I really respect and admire what you guys are doing, and I love the plugins. I like the spirit of what you're doing. So it's mutual, and I can't. Let's do more of this, man. Invite me on. I'll come back for sure.
We'll definitely get you back on. We'll get a test call. We'll get it set up properly. I'm maybe going to go over to America, get you proper internet.
Exactly. Okay, I'll leave you with this story. This is true. Our internet here is quite literally, it's a tree, okay, with an antenna in it. Okay, it's like, think like Bali or like Thailand in the 90s speed. It's like, we're talking like 3 up, 3 down sort of vibe. This tree, okay, my last story, the tree has been attacked by it's been attacked by a pileated woodpecker, severed the cable. It was hit by lightning. I mean, I couldn't make this up. It was hit by lightning. And then the last thing that happened is African paleface hornets built a nest. So that's how we get internet here. That's why it's solo. So there you go.
Listen, thank you so much for joining us, because I look, as I say, I'm a big fan. You have inspired countless and countless of people. You've created probably the genre of trance, by what you're doing, and it's just been a pleasure. And I know everyone on the chat here is just freaking out that you're on and chatting and listening to your tracks. I will pass you Toby's email. I know he will be amazing. And thank you for joining us. And let's look. Promise me we'll do this again in a couple of months.
You have my absolute word. I can't wait to come back. Yeah, invite me anytime. I'll come. And
listen, best wishes with the plugin. We hope it goes really well. It is stunning. It's a brilliant piece of work. Guys, it's on isotope.com if you want to go and grab it. For those that have one, there's an upgrade path, isn't there?
Yeah. There's a limited time upgrade path. I think it's $79 only, but that's only for a short time. So yeah, I can't wait to hear what you guys do with it for sure.
Brilliant. Yeah, I know you're open. You're sending links. Far over clips of audio and stuff to Brian. I know he'd love to hear what you're doing. I'd like to thank Phil, who has battled very, very hard all tonight. I've sat here, Brian, drinking beer, relaxing, having a wonderful conversation. Well, Phil has been
trying to capture BT and make sure he's like in the frame. It's not working. I apologize to everyone. I've tried my best, but
I think we need to fly. Brian, next time you're over at AD or something, we'll do this. We'll get you in the studio, or we'll come over there and we'll do it in the studio and record it properly. Listen,
seriously, come over here, you guys. When we're through all this like lockdown stuff, please come out. Like, we have friends out here all the time. Of course, we haven't recently, but you guys are more than welcome here. And I mean, you don't understand the amount of stuff that's in the room. We will be able to nerd out so hard, it's crazy.
I'd love to. Listen, that is such a kind offer. We're going to take you up on it. Thank you so much. Guys, everyone in the chat, thank you for joining us tonight. Again, thank you to Brian for taking time out. I know he's really busy. We'll let him go. We will see you all next week. Hope you stay safe and well. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, what's going on out there? Sean Tyus here, speaking on behalf of Sonic Academy, and I'm happy to announce my new series of videos where I'll be dissecting my own single, Matter of Time. We'll be covering bass design, sound design, processing, acid and synth, sound design, processing, percussion, transitions, everything really of the entire track. I can't wait for you to walk through it with me. I hope you can actually learn a lot from this set of videos and immediately start integrating it into your own productions. And yeah, enjoy.